Hey, welcome back to our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little introduction. It was a little something different. That's about as artistic as you're going to get from me. I had a couple of very constructive comments from viewers regarding the audio on the videos I've been producing. I know the audio has often been poor, and particularly when my voice trails away, it's not picked up very well. The reason for that is that I use the microphone built into my small camera. What I'm going to try to do now is go back to the digital recorder microphone that I've used in the past. And the only issue is I have to sync those files when I edit. And if my lips and voice don't match like some old Japanese Godzilla movie, you understand why. Well, listen, here's the project that we're going to be working on for the next day or two. It's a Singer Model 201K sewing machine in a Model 51 oak cabinet, quarter-sawn oak cabinet. According to the serial number, it was produced on December 3rd of 1937. Here's the machine, and as you can see, it is in spectacular condition. It has a bobbin assembly attached. It has all of the original chrome on the wheel. You can see the condition of the chrome here is spectacular. The decals are all intact. The Singer emblem is in beautiful shape. The only real wear anywhere near the machine is right here on the top, and that's probably where the woman rested her hand. Her palm probably wore into that, but that's just finish wear. I'm just amazed at the condition of this machine. It looks brand new. And let me take you off the stand now, and I'll bring you inside the cabinet. On the interior of the left door, we have this assembly here, and obviously this is for bobbins or thread. And then if you give this a little yank, this drawer swings open, and there's actually a little pile of attachments in here, and a Singer box, and some other things that go with the machine, I suppose. I'll take a look at that later. But that's in beautiful condition. You can see it's a quarter-sawn oak veneer done in a very dark finish, a real mission style finish. And then looking inside, this is the treadle assembly. And this I don't know if this is cast iron or pressed steel at this age machine. I'm just not certain. But look at the condition of the paint on the treadle. I don't think this machine got a tremendous amount of use, or if it did, the person, the woman who owned it, was just incredibly gentle with it and took excellent care of it. The hinges are in good shape. The original hardware is still on the machine. It's just amazing the condition that it's in. The doors have a kind of an Art Deco look to them, kind of like that waterfall look. Very, very interestingly, it appears that there are Bakelite handles on the door, although it looks like I would assume that these had a top piece that mirrored the bottom piece, and that both of them have broken off. And if you look in there, you can see the tops of the screws. But we still have portions of those on the original handles. It's unfortunate that those are gone, but it is what it is. And then the side of the machine is in similar shape. The finish is failing. And we go to the flip-up portion of the top. It has some finish wear, as does the top of the machine, as you would expect. Look at the condition of the plate on the frame of the machine. The presser foot chrome is all there. And really the only discoloration I see is on this plate here, and this should polish off. I don't see any pitting, just some discoloration. But look at the condition of these decals. Just amazing. Just amazing. So we have our work cut out for us. As far as damage goes, we have one area of impact here where the wood is crushed, and what we'll do there is get that straightened out and super glue it back in place before we refinish it. That's not a big deal. Again, finish is worn here, and I saw at least one, yeah, right there at the bottom of the machine, a little veneer chip that will inlay another piece of veneer in there and take care of that. But there we go. That's the project. We will begin by taking off the top, taking the machine out of there, and disassembling it as far as we need to, and then it's all got to be stripped, and fingers crossed it'll come off easily. As we said before, I'm just going to strip the outside of this cabinet and refinish it. I'm going to leave the inside alone. And as such, there's no reason for me to disassemble it any further. I can certainly work around this interior stuff. I'm not going to take the doors off. They're held on by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 24 screws on each side. And I'm not going to remove this because that's on the interior. So what I'll probably do is just tape this edge and then take care of the outside. Before we start to strip, I want to take a look at this finish. Hopefully the camera will focus for you. This looks to be, the lighter color seems to be a light walnut or a dark golden oak. Maybe a little bit on the lighter side of dark golden oak. The grain of the oak is filled with what appears to be a black glaze. This isn't a grain filler finish. It's coarse, at least on the front. And when you look at it in raking light, you can see the oak grain pits are left open. So what I believe this to be is a light walnut or golden oak finish, which is then sealed and then glazed in black. So black glaze went into all the open pits. The glaze was allowed to set up, and then it was lacquer coated over top of it. And by taking a good look at the finish before we take it off, I think that's going to be our finish of choice. This is the crushed corner we're dealing with. What my plan is to take 2 maple blocks, put them across this back, run a clamp across here, and see if we can squeeze these back together. If they come together in some worthwhile semblance of shape, we'll super glue them, and when they dry, then we'll be able to just touch them up. If they don't crush together well, what we'll do is just take an X-Acto knife, cut out the loose fibers, and fill that in with epoxy. Okay, it brought the crush back together. The fibers aren't laying exactly where they belong, so I think I'm going to cut some of the fibers out, but then I am going to super glue this and crush it back with a vise one more time, and then whatever areas remain we'll fill with some epoxy. But certainly better than it was. And by lightly tapping and shaping this with the ball peen and flat part of this hammer, we've got it pulled pretty much right back together. So I'm just going to put some thin super glue on this, let it set up, and then we will build up from there as we do the cosmetics, but I believe that's taken care of the major problem. Okay, I've surrounded the area with some blue tape to keep the mess to a minimum. I have some thin super glue and a little pipette. And gravity's kind of working against us here, but again, this cabinet is very heavy. The less flipping around we do, the better. And you can see that the super glue is being sucked right into the wood fibers, which is exactly what we want. Okay, let me put the glue down. This block of wood is wrapped in wax paper. Get it exactly where we want it. Crank it. That's how we've got it clamped across that leg assembly. There's not a lot of area exposed, but we'll hit it with some instant activator, which tends to work its way in, and leave that for just a few minutes. Next up, we need to take care of this. Came out. It's very, very flat. We have very, very little that we need to fill or color. I'll get this last little bit of tape off with a razor knife, but there you go. From a crushed corner to back together, and really with very little work. And then we have this repair here. That's done and shaped. And I'll take one more look around and see if we have any more repairs that need to be done before we start to strip. But there you go. So far so good. Well, hey boys and girls, as you know, it's time for that wonderful part of the project we like to call strippy strip. Methylene chloride stripper, these tools, gloves, eye protection. I keep a wet rag to wipe off any methylene chloride stripper that might get on my skin. I have the hose charged up outside in case, gosh forbid, I get some splashed in my eyes. I can get right out there and get it sprayed off. So I'm going to spare you the details. I'll get to stripping this cabinet and the doors and panels we took off, and I'll bring you back when it's done. Hey, I brought you back. I want to show you something kind of cool. The lacquer coat on this piece is very thin, as you would expect, and it has what appears to be just a little bit of color in it. But as I'm stripping off the finish, all of the original color on the piece is remaining behind. That tells me the piece was probably stained with an aniline dye at the factory, and because of that, I'm doing everything I can to preserve that, and that means no abrasives when I clean this off. So let me show you the best I can what it looks like as this finish is coming off. So if you have a similar situation, you can recognize it. Right here, this cloudy stuff, that's where the stripper has lifted the finish off, and right in here, most of the finish is gone. So let me get a brush on that and show you what we're dealing with. So here's my chip brush soaking stripper, and you can see it's lifting off the finish that's been worked loose by the stripper, and underneath that is all of the original color that was on this piece. That's going to make leaving this piece looking old very, very easy, and I'm really, really pleased with that. So there, just wanted to show you that. Hope you picked up a tip. Let me get finished stripping this and then I'll bring you back. Okay, the stripping is done. The stripping went relatively easily. The finish came right off. It was thin, it was lacquer. And again, as I said before, the color appears to be aniline dye, which is in the wood. There are a couple of places where the color has worn through, where the finish is worn through. It's either bleached or perhaps just from contact with human hands or whatever, it's lightened up. So, and if you remember when we were first describing the piece, there was a spot where we thought the operator, the woman, or maybe even the man that owned this machine would have rested his or her hand, and you can see with the finish gone that the color is worn through here. So we have to add some color to that to blend it in. Also on the lid, and this is the under, I believe this is the underside of the lid. You can see we're a little bit light right here. No, that was actually the top side of the lid. And then on the underside of the lid, there's a little bit of lightness in the center of the field. The other piece, start again. The other piece that we took off for stripping, the color is intact. This cabinet was finished on all four sides, and obviously it was against the wall, and we have some bangs here that have to be colored in. We have a scratch here. We have another scratch here. And then we have the repairs that we made earlier that we're going to have to color in, and a ding here. So most of the damage is on the back side of the cabinet, as you would expect from it being up against the wall and being banged around. And I mixed up some raw umber dye stain, and I cut it about 50-50, maybe even a little bit thinner, with some acetone. And this will be the third application. I'm just laying some color across this light spot, and it's pulling it right back in to the existing finish. And you can see that that light spot is really just disappearing. Around the light spot, if you can see, I'm standing on my tippy toes right now, is this little ring. That's going to be very, very difficult to conceal. And really, to be honest with you, I'm not that worried about it. But that's the first step of bringing this back in. So I may touch up a few more spots, and then I'll bring you back when it's time to seal this. Okay, I've got just a little rag kind of rolled up in a ball in my fingertips, and I put a little bit of dye on the end of it. And what I'm going to do is pad that on that light spot right there. And padding is basically just an application process where it's kind of like use the motion of a touch and go of an airplane, doing touch and go landings, and just kind of lay some color. And you can see how that's already pulling that back in. I've already taken care of the light spot in the center. So this technique is working very well on this project. You know, there's always different ways of doing things. You know, this could have been colored in with pigments. It could be colored in with, could use toner. We could use stains. But in this case, this watered down dye stain appears to be doing the trick for these things. And that's really, to be honest with you, to me, the best part of doing these is you get to figure this stuff out, and it's your project or your decisions. So there you go. So those light spots are taken care of. I will touch up the rest of them, and then I'll bring you back when it's time to seal this up. Okay, that one is not doing what we want it to do, so let's go a little bit darker with our stain. There we go. Now we're starting to make some progress here. Again, I don't want to go and make a nice dark line right across there because it'll just follow. But you can see that we're making progress here. This is really hard because I've got the camera right in front of my face, and I can't do it looking through the viewfinder. I've got to kind of somehow get you all out of the way. Okay. So anyways, that's what we have by doing that. And I'll get this one and the other one and we'll be done. Well, sometimes I even surprise myself when things work out really well. This is the top of the lid of the sewing machine. As you remember, this had all broken finish on it, and it had some, light rings from water and all sorts of stuff. And just by patting on that raw umber dye stain thin down after we had stripped off the finish, it looks brand new. We had some good success with that technique. The cabinet is all color touched up, so the next step is to seal it, and then we're going to start shooting some lacquer on it. So this is going really, really well this morning. Hey, it's time to spray sealer and lacquer on this piece. I'm not going to show you that. If you look back on my channel, almost every single video shows me shooting lacquer and shooting sealer on it. There's plenty of information out there already on this. What I want to share with you is that I understand there's some frustration with some of the viewers of the channel who want to do this kind of stuff but don't have the ability to use spray tools and may feel that they're stymied. Everything that we've done up to this point you can do with stuff you bought at the Home Depot. The next step is to seal this. You don't have to use lacquer sealer. If you don't have spray equipment, I recommend you get this. This is called Seal Coat. It's a 2-pound cut of de-waxed shellac. It's by Zinsser, and what you'll do is dilute this, maybe 4 parts of alcohol to 1 part of Seal Coat, and brush it on your piece. Let it dry and light sand it. Your piece is sealed. Then you can top coat it. You can use all sorts of stuff to top coat. I would recommend for someone who doesn't have a lot of experience, maybe one of the polyurethanes. My suggestion would be a satin polyurethane, and you can brush it on. They have wiping polyurethanes you can wipe on. Just follow the manufacturer's directions. Make sure you sand between coats because, as you know, polyurethane doesn't melt into itself, so it needs roughness to stick. So you have to abrade each subsequent coat. There's all sorts of other top coats you can use, including brushing lacquers, which I don't recommend, and there's varnishes and all sorts of stuff. But you don't have to use spray equipment. It's very, very easy to finish furniture and get satisfactory results using some of these over-the-counter products. So listen, I'm going to get to work with my equipment and get this piece done, and when I bring you back, I'll show you the beauty shots.